Welcome to Translate.One-To-One's interviews where we pull back the curtain at Translate One to see what never gets lost in translation. My name is Laura Márquez, Client Solutions and Business Development Manager at Translate One, and today I am glad to be joined by Peter Smith, our CEO. Peter, thank you very much for being here today. Welcome to the third episode of Translate.One-To-Ones. Could you give us an idea, a little bit of background of who you are? Can you tell us in a few words who you are and where you're based?
Sure. Hi, Laura. Thank you for inviting me on. I'm the CEO of Translate One. I'm located in Denver, Colorado, and I have been in the localization and language industry for many, many years. Initially in a variety of roles, starting as a project manager and doing a number of things, including operational management, sales, until general management, which is what I am now. I spend most of my days, I guess, setting the strategy of the company. We're very acquisitive, so dealing with the acquisitions and the integration of those companies.
Wow, thank you. A myriad of things. I did not know that you had done all that before. It's wonderful to have you here so that we get this, let's say, inside look of who you are. It's wonderful. And what led you here to this particular role now as CEO of Translate One?
So Translate One, as I say, is acquisitive. So they had a desire to grow and expand their business. And so I joined really to be able to lead that endeavor. And we, of course, look to grow through organic means, but so we've also adopted a strategy of acquisitions, which enables us to, I guess, speed up and intensify um, the goals, which is to be able to provide a range of services and software to facilitate and accommodate the distribution of global content. And so with the acquisitions, we're able to do that quicker than through organic means. But obviously, we look to get synergies and be able to then speeding up the growth and development through the organic endeavors as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. And when we get into your role a little bit more of managing Translate One, I think part of what we do is pretty self-explanatory from our name. And thing is that everybody currently is talking about AI replacing translation, right? So not necessarily moving besides it or accompanying it, but straight on replacing it. And that's a shadow that follows us everywhere, right? But something that you've been saying and that we have been seeing ourselves is that it's not really that simple, right? So what would you say that is actually changing in the industry right now?
So I think you're correct, is that that's the way that AI is being perceived and in some ways positioned, and in some ways is correct. If you're an occasional user of translation requirements, then you can now get a pretty good version of that through AI. So, for example, I receive emails in Italian quite often, in some other languages, but latterly there's been a lot in Italian. I don't speak Italian. There's a little button that allows me to translate it, gives me what I think is a pretty good translation. So there is no way those emails, I would sort of extract them, send them off to a translation company. So my little button does great for me. However, if that was communication that I was relaying to a patient about some very distressing medical news, I would not be trusting that little button. I would be still needing to know that the output I get is an exact replica of the what I'd initiated in English or wherever it was. And so for that to happen, I would be needing more than AI. May well be using AI somewhere in the process, because clearly
Absolutely.
there's some benefits from it, but certainly not trusting its output in that way. And I think that's the relevant message, is that AI contributes, speeds up, can facilitate and enhance a process, but it can't necessarily replace the knowledge, the experience, and the intent. And particularly as we're talking about communication, and communication is core to humans. And so I think that we have to remember and retain humans in that environment and experience.
Yeah, yeah, I absolutely agree. The higher the stakes, the more complicated it all gets, right? And if we talk a little bit about you as a CEO, something that I think is very interesting and that I'm very curious about is the fact that most of us in the company, for example, might have an idea of the thought process behind some of the day-to-day decisions people in the company make, right? So I might understand why quality takes a certain approach to something or production makes this decision, but you as a CEO kind of take on a more big scale role, right? So it's a full picture choice or decision. And you have not only been leading growth, but expansion as well. So when you look at another company for a potential acquisition, what is your thought process behind it? What do you look for? Do you see, okay, well, this is something that we're already doing that will help us escalate or grow? Or do you see something more, okay, this is new, this is fresh, and we're not doing this yet, we should go for this? Or is it maybe a mixture of the two?
Okay, sure. Um, well, I think as we were just talking about with AI, it does improve some areas of our business, and particularly the actual translation element, the putting words from one language into another. But we're talking within our organization and maybe broader in the industry around content and the provision of global content. And content
Mhm.
comes in many different forms, different file formats, authored in different ways, stored and distributed in different platforms in different manners, as about the email and the medical reference, different levels of criticality. So to be able to facilitate the management of global content for organizations, and particularly ones where they have a strategic view. So they have invested in systems and platforms, could be XML, could be web content management systems, PIM systems, a whole variety of ways that you can create and manage content. So be able to organize the distribution of all that data and information in multiple languages, ensuring consistency, brand management, and being able to deliver the right content at the right time, in the right place, at the right cost, etc., takes a large infrastructure, a lot of knowledge, and a broad distribution, because you want to be able to service and facilitate those customers locally. You may want to make sure that you're procuring services locally. So the reason why and the strategy behind our acquisitions is to be able to give us that global organization and the skills and the systems and platforms to be able to facilitate those requirements regardless of the customer, the location, the file formats, the vertical, etc. So that's where we got, and obviously through acquisition you can look for organizations who have a high level of whether it's quality or technology or whatever it may be, and then you can look to take what made them great and then combine it with other organizations and create those synergies and additional and extra value. So that's what we're looking to do.
I think you mentioned a word that is becoming more of a key word nowadays, more and more, which is content, right? Because we're seeing a huge industry shift and major companies moving far beyond the traditional linguistic services, right? We don't talk about translation and interpreting anymore, or at least not as the full picture, right? Would you say that we are now kind of transitioning into a bigger content ecosystem?
Yeah, I think so, because of AI, there is the ability to create content much quicker than ever before and at a lower cost. And accordingly, there is a lot more of it. And when you get a lot more of anything, and particularly in the fashion that it can be produced in AI, you have to be quite careful about how it's managed and distributed. So I think we all know if you go to ChatGPT, Claude, whatever it might be, and you put in a question, your response is probably not enough. It leads to another question and then another, and eventually, after you've fed it and questioned it and probed it, you may get to where you where you expected or wanted to be. You've produced a lot of content, even in just getting to that. And so every time that that happens, or you're using it to create presentations or websites or reports or whatever, it's much easier now to generate, and you could generate bigger reports and more reports that it would have taken an age to do at one time in our more manual fashion. So you end up with an awful lot of content. And with AI, you can translate all that, and you can translate it pretty much instantly. But do you want to? Do you want to know what it says, and do you want to know that it's actually, replicated it in the language, or is it good enough that it came out as a gist, and where are you going to use it? So there's there's so many layers of complexity. One thing you could be sure of is that it's not just as simple as translating it, and then you've got the messaging that you would want in any language. I saw that somebody had posted on LinkedIn, um, if I can eloquently relay this quickly, that they got a friend or somebody who was going to Korea, and they said, "Oh, you're going for business? Yeah, business. We have customers in Korea." And they said, "Oh, great. Well, I've just put your LinkedIn profile into Korean. Do you want to upload that?" And the person said, "Well, no, I don't. Why not?" He said, "Well, I won't know what it says." Exactly. So, and that's, you don't really want to be hosting, making visible information, messaging when you're not even sure it's accurate. And as a company, we have lots of different ways and recipients of communication. So if I wanted to send a message to the whole company about some significant change or something we're doing, and okay, we're a language company and everybody speaks really good English, but if they didn't, and we have people all over the globe, I'd want to put it in some other languages, but I would want to know that it said exactly what I wanted it to say, and it had not missed a point out and it said 30% instead of 3%, or it didn't say, we're going to do it right. It said we're going to do it right away, or, even a small difference error can have a real significant impact. And that's internal communication. So, but some other internal communication, I don't care. Happy holidays. Okay, I'm pretty sure I can put that in, and it's going to send happy holidays out. So language and content is so different, so nuanced, has so many different aspects that organizations like ours' role is to be able to contribute all those years of knowledge, of experience, of working with clients, of seeing errors, of having quality platforms, quality processes. So we utilize the best of what is current, so LLMs and AI, to give speed, to give cost effectiveness. And then we use all this that we acquire to be able to add real value so that our customers know that they can entrust global content and know that it's getting to the right people at the right time, at the right quality level, at a price which makes it feasible. So I guess that's as a message where we are as a company.
Absolutely. I think it's precisely key what you're discussing about quality, about processes, about management, because given that content explosion that you're talking about, companies having more content than ever, I think it's the way for us to win or to thrive in that environment is the way that we position ourselves within the industry, right? And you have described many times Translate.One as evolving into, let's say, from an LSP into a global content partner. And I think it's precisely those processes that make the difference, right? Because what does that look for the client in the end and in practice? Why is working with a content provider different than working with a traditional translator or a translation provider?
Yeah, and that's why our acquisition strategy is key, because we all have moved to being a content solution provider, whatever the buzzword would be. To be able to do that, you need skills, you need experience, you need technology, you need to be able to utilize third-party technology, you need to be able to integrate it all comprehensively in a quality process. And that's not something you can adapt and adopt overnight. Well, we're not doing that. We're acquiring companies who've been going for 20, 25, 30, 40 years and have specialisms. And if we can get the best out of those specialisms and say the synergies of the other companies with theirs, then we can put together very complete, very systematically organized, quality based solutions. And say that takes knowledge of platforms, knowledge of language, knowledge of customers, and a customer as such is a very individual enterprise and an organization who creates medical devices has some similarities and some of the same type of content as a company that produces woodworking machinery, but then it also has, a number of unique elements. And to be able to satisfy all requirements, you need to be able to adjust and adopt your technologies and your processes to be able to accommodate the nuances of each.
When we talk about, we hear a word that this word content that might get very abstract and very general. If we make it more specific, right? And it's an interesting insight into how we're working in Translate.One, which are verticals. We're currently having our teams specialized by verticals, by industry. So why would you say that's important? I think I've been hearing about other companies, of course, stating with this process is beginning this type of quality systems, etc. But I have not heard yet that they are using verticals or specializing their teams. Why would you say that's important? Why do you feel that gives us an edge or an advantage?
So I think that one thing that AI has definitely done is created a process of being able to put from one language into another very effectively, very quickly. And we as a linguistic organization can add a lot of value to that by glossaries, by processors that, as I say, if you use AI and you question it once, question it 3 times, etc., you're going to get more in-depth, more detailed, better output. Same with language. If you can improve it during the process, it's going to improve. You can improve it a 3rd time, it's going to get better, etc. So we work on systems and solutions to be able to increase the quality, regardless of whether you're using AI, LLMs, etc. And so that's one element where AI is really useful. I think to be able to be a good provider of content, and content to me is just any way of communicating, then you have to understand a lot more about the way that it's going to be utilized, its criticality, um, reuse, brand management, all these different elements, which again, if you're a fashion house, you probably have some elements of your content which you're going to treat differently to others. So your stuff that goes in the store needs to be consistent and ultra maybe creative and meaningful to your audience locally. But if you're providing e-learning training for your store members that, they have to clean up at the end of the day and this is how you mop and whatever, you don't need the same attention to the output and stuff. So there's a great variety of content that's needed. And that's just to say the written stuff we also deal with the spoken as well. And so if you can understand the challenges, the nuances, the terminology, the use of that content across the enterprise within a vertical, you're probably going to be able to embed yourself better within the organization to provide more meaningful answers to the challenges they're having. And so that's how we have centers of excellence and consultants who are specializing within an area so that they get a more deeper understanding of the challenges and the requirements that a global content provider can bring.
Absolutely. That word consultant, we've been hearing a lot when trying to focus on becoming that, to kind of scale up as a partner and being able to provide tailored answers and help out the teams as much as we can, particularly in the medtech sphere that you were talking about. Industries that handle medical devices, that handle very sensitive data or content that could harm a person, right? Harm or heal somebody, something that is so sensitive. What do you think companies should consider when they're thinking about managing multilingual content under such tight standards like ISO 13485? if you were a medical device company and you were beginning to manage multilingual content, what is a piece of advice you would give to those people?
Well, I guess if you have a medical device company and you're providing a very critical product, um, maybe life and death, but if not, very, very significant value add products, you're spending most of your time, your resources, the skills on developing, optimizing your products and years of research, years of studying by your teams, etc. Well, we have the same around global content and global communication. So if you could bring in the expertise where you don't have it, then that to me would make sense. So everybody knows, and I've said the word AI far too many times already here, but I say words, letters. I should get it right, seeing as we're talking about communication. Um, you know, you can put what you want in AI and where our business is concerned and get something out of it. And it'll be quick and it will be low cost. However, if there's an error, it's not going to be low cost, is it? It may have a significant cost, a significant human cost, a significant financial cost, whatever it might be. So it would seem to me to make sense to ensure that you're entrusting, in this case, information that may create real issues to your business to organizations and people who know how to deal with that, who have done it many times and understand the challenges of it. And it would be a false economy to think that you can remove some of those elements. And I think that, as I said earlier in our conversation, or I think I said, not all content is equal. So again, you cannot treat and expect everything to have the same. I know very little about medical devices, so but I'm sure there's some areas of which are less critical than others, and maybe some of the bits of plastic that you use or whatever is probably there's probably more options and more available, and you can go out to a different cost basis or whatever than you can for some other elements where you've got some chips or whatever in there that are critical to the product. And that's the same with us. You can, there's some content that you don't need all that level of attention, and we can automate the majority of it. And then there's some that does need it, and we will ensure that we automate it, but provide the knowledge, the checks, the quality that you can be assured that the output is going to meet the requirements. And so that, you know, that would be my advice, to make sure that you go to experts for what is an expert business. And also, if you're going to the right providers, they are utilizing the technology. You don't think that, if we do it ourselves, we can do it with AI. If we do it externally, then it's going to be something different. No, it's going to be AI still, but it's going to be AI with a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, and a lot of quality process behind it.
Absolutely. A curated AI, or an AI 2.0, if
Then
you will. Yeah.
there we are.
I think let's do one last question on AI, because it's unavoidable. You say that you mention it a lot, but there's just no way around this, Peter. I think my question would be, where do you think, or you think it should fit in the content life cycle today? Or what are companies still getting wrong about AI in global communication? Is it overuse? Is it underuse? Is it misuse?
Yeah, I think it's probably all that, as far as I'm party to. I mean, it's new, and with everything that new, it's appealing, and it's well promoted by us, everybody.
Absolutely,
We're
yeah.
all talking about it. I wish, people were talking about Translate.One as much as they're talking about AI. So there's no way that you can ignore it. And so everybody's aware of it, and everybody knows that it's very, very smart, and that it can add a lot of stuff, and it does it instantly, and you all get access to it. And so you have to use it. If you're a company competing and everybody's competing in an environment and sorts, you have to try and get an edge, or you have to try and stay current, or you have to keep up with the others, or you have to keep up with customer expectations. So you have to use it. But it's quite early days for it. It's got again, I'll refer to something else that I saw online to see where I get all my information from.
Same here.
Somebody published that they asked AI if it was safe to put their cat in a microwave, and the answer from AI was, yes, of course, paraphrasing, but something similar to, yes, of course, as long as you put it on a low setting, which I don't think is that accurate. I've not tried it, but I don't think that that's the right answer. Now, of course, maybe if you question it again, then you'd have got a different answer. And I see everybody, I'm sure, has seen these. And I've seen another one about a little meme about somebody eating, having asked if this mushroom is poisonous, eating the mushroom, and then once they've died as a result of it, AI is asking whether they want to give them more information on poisonous mushrooms and apologizing for getting that wrong. My point being that we don't know at the moment what it gets right, what it gets wrong, and you need to check. And in these cases, you can read it and it's amusing and you can figure it out. But amongst the amount of content that's distributed, we don't know at the moment, really. But there's a lot of work going to develop it and build it. And specifically around, as you mentioned, verticals, you can enhance the output around a specific vertical or for a specific customer or endeavor. So I think that as time goes on, it will change and we'll need to adapt even more. But what I can't see going away anytime soon is a requirement to still have knowledge, systems, infrastructure, platforms built on years and years of studying and working as majority of the people in the industry have to add the expertise that's needed to optimize the messaging. And so I think that that's still going to be there for some years to come.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So if
And
we,
then, and then, of
yeah,
course, as I said earlier, outside of the actual language element, to be able to manage the distribution of the amount of content that's produced now, you have to have ways of doing it. And AI at the moment will not deal with the platforms, the structure, the infrastructure, the support requirements to be able to distribute the content effectively.
in the end, imagine somebody watching this skipped all the way to the end. And if I ask you for advice or one thing that you would want companies operating globally or about to launch globally to rethink about how they manage content or multilingual content, what would it be?
Well, I think that just respecting, and I think I'm repeating myself, but maybe nobody will watch it all anyway. So, but I think that we can use phrases like content or communication or whatever illustrates what we're talking about, but being able to communicate across languages, across cultures, across marketplaces, and be able to compete in local environments, compete globally, takes a lot of understanding, a lot of knowledge, and a lot of experience. And it's inexpensive to use organizations that have those skills to help you deliver that and be assured that technology and AI will be at the heart of it. If you eliminate those elements, I'm sure you could still do it. I'm sure that companies can set up their own LLMs and AI and have some degree of success. But I say people in the industry, in the business, have studied language for years, have dealt with the nuances of communication, with different technologies. And if you could utilize some of that experience, some of that knowledge, and I think ultimately you're creating and getting real value and ultimately would benefit from that extra expense, if that's what you call it.
Wonderfully put. Yeah, I absolutely agree. Well, thank you very much for your time today, Peter. Thank you for your insights and thank you for being a CEO that sees us, that celebrates our achievements. Whenever we have a big project like a 178 linguistic validation project that we're amazed by and proud of, we feel that you're part of that pride and that amazement too. So thank you for supporting us and thank you for being here today.
Yeah, thanks, Laura. And so just I guess one thing that I'd just like to add as well, which I think is important, and I've not
Yeah.
mentioned it. I'm speaking to you today from one of our locations in the UK, and it's uh, 2 miles from the Welsh border. Now, you have a Welsh language, and it just made me think. The other thing about AI and about the technologies is that not all, as well as the content, not all languages are equal. So it's really important if you're wanting to be local, encourage cultures, and really communicate with people, that you need to also be aware that the availability of Welsh language in AI is not as prevalent as Spanish, for example. So if
Mm-hmm.
you've got content in Welsh or in a lot of African languages or Asian languages or other languages around the world, the quality of output you get is probably not going to be the same as you're going to get from Spanish, for example. So I don't think they're any less important in any way, but you just probably need to be aware that different languages may need treating differently as well, and that's just another important element. Apologies for extending our chat, but I just thought of that, so there we go. But anyway, nice speaking with you, and thanks for your time.
Not at all. Thank you very much. Thank you,
All
Peter.
right, bye now.